Alright guys, welcome to my strategy guide for problem 4. The reason I'm making this is after meeting with a lot of students during office hours, I started to see some common trends in the kinds of problems you guys are having. So we're going to go over all of the steps leading up to problem 4 and then talking about strategy for actually approaching this kind of problem. During the process, I will be reviewing some things and talking about different choices you have. So it's going to be valuable even if you've already finished the lab, or at least through problem 4. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is download this Airbnb.csv file. Let me just left click on that to open it up. It's too big to view, but if I go over here and I right click on download, I can see that I have the power to save the link as. I'm going to do that. That's going to bring up this menu right here. I'm going to be saving this in my working directory, which is under Mike. Where's CS220? There it is, CS220. This is going to be lab P6. So I'm going to save it right here. Now check this out. It's added this .txt extension and the parenthesis 1. So I'm just going to fix this right here. I need this to be a CSV file, and GitHub will automatically, with Windows, sometimes switch it to a text file because it recognizes that it's plain text. Alright. You can switch it right there. I'm going to leave it as .txt. If you've already downloaded the file, I'm going to show you how to fix that. So I'm going to put this right here, save the file, it's downloaded, and it's already complete. Now if I go over here, I can see that it's the .txt version because I have enabled file extensions. I'm not going to go over how to do that right now. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up PowerShell. That's a shift right click if you're on Windows to easily get to the open PowerShell window. Again, shift right click, open this up, and now let's make this full screen for you guys. ls will show me that I've actually got the .txt version. To fix this, I can just move airbnb.txt to airbnb.csv. ls again will show me that it's now got the correct file extension. Alright, so I've switched back over to the lab P6 description. The next thing we need to do is actually import this CSV file into Jupyter Notebook so we can read the data. So I've got a Jupyter Notebook already open in my working directory, and I'm just going to copy and paste this text right here into my Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so I've got an untitled one just opened up. Let's get this name to main so we can save it. I'm going to get some cells. This is the cell where I put my name. This is going to be my imports. And then this cell is going to be where I put in that CSV function. I'm going to move imports up to my imports cell. There we go. Now I've got this process CSV file. Note that this function is already going to call the process CSV file right here for me in line 10. It's going to split it up into a header, CSV header, and that's just going to get row 0. So the CSV file, when you open it up and read it, the header has all of the information about the different columns. And then the CSV data is going to be all of the data. So it's going to start at row 1, skip the header row, and give me absolutely everything. Okay, so let me just restart and run all. That'll run all of these cells. All right, very good. Next thing I want to do, let's add a cell below. We'll get us 2 cells. Is just print out what the CSV header looks like. And we'll run this cell. Okay, so now I can see the list of all of the headings. I'm going to come back and print this out many times throughout the lab because I have trouble remembering exactly what we named things. Like the room ID, I can't remember if it's name ID or room ID name. I can't remember if it's room or name. I get confused. All right. The next thing I want to do is just take a look at what this data looks like. Now, the CSV data has something. Here, let's take a look at this. The length of the CSV data is actually like 49,000 entries. I don't want to print that much out. So I'm going to print CSV data, and I'm just going to take a slice of this. I'm going to get rows 0 to 5, and we'll print that much out. So here we go. This is just looking at this, I can see a couple things already. This very first bracket tells me I'm looking at a list. There's the closing bracket that matches with that one. And then in each of these entries in the list, I can see that they are in themselves lists. So this first one goes all the way over here to that closing bracket. And I'm just printing out index 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's 5 entries here. I can see that all of these things are currently strings. Even the numbers, the dates, they're all strings. Floating point numbers, all strings. So the next thing in the lab is that cell function. So I'm going to switch back and bring that up. So the lab goes through a bunch of things, asks you to try some stuff out, has some question marks, try and figure out what to do. I'm assuming that you've already gone through and figured all of those things out. The next thing we actually need for project 6, question 4 though, is this cell function. This is going to make everything during the lab so much easier to do. And for the most part, most of the people who have come to office hours thus far have had trouble with this. Their cell function has had a problem, and they either decided not to use it, which makes things a lot more work, or they were getting mistakes because of this. So this is the number 2 most common problem. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy the wrong thing. All right, let me get a copy of this. I'm going to put this in here. And now we need to go ahead and finish this cell project. So here's how this is going to work. Cell is going to take a row index from the data, that's CSV data, and a column name. This is going to be a string. It's going to be one of these items from the CSV header, like maybe the name. So what I want to do then is get the column index from this one. So if I put in name, this is index 0, this is index 1. Internally, it's going to take care of this indexing for me. So the column index is just going to be, I'm going to use the index function. That's going to grab which index an entry is in a list. So this is a list function. The lab talked about that. So hopefully you've gone through that. This is just going to be the column name. Now the value, I'm looking up a value in my data. So in this case, I'm getting something from CSV data. It is a list of lists. So what I need to know is which list I'm getting things from, and that's going to be the row index, and the column index I've just figured out right there. So it's grabbing one string from this piece of data, giant table of data. So this is going to be the row index right here, row IDX. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and test this real quick. So I'm going to just run cell, and let's see, let's grab the name of something. How about, let's make sure we print out this one right here, just to see how this works. So cell takes 2 things. It takes a row index, that should be row 0 of my data, and it takes the name of a column. And I already forgot. Is this called? It's called name. So I'm going to just copy that and paste it right here. I can use double quotes or single quotes. When I run this cell, it's going to print out that entry that I was going for right there. All right, so it looks like this is working so far. The tricky part, what most people leave out is they take out this val equals empty string, I want to return none, or they don't copy it into from the beginning. All right, so the next thing I want to do is convert the types based on the column name. I'm going to go ahead and do one of these just to demonstrate how this works. So if, in this case, column name equals, and I'm using the exactly equals with the double equals, let's go ahead and do the price column. So we should focus back over here. If column name equals price, then I want to change the result into an integer. I believe they're all integers. I don't think they're floating point numbers. Let me double check that. Timeout. Yep, they're all integers. So what I want to do instead is just return. I'm going to use typecasting here, and that's just the function int, and I'm going to give it val as my what I want to return. All right, I'll let you guys go ahead and do the rest of these things that are numbers. To turn something into a floating point number, the command is just float. Everything here is already a string, so we don't need to go and convert anything to a string. The only ones we'll need to do are int and float. And I'll let you guys take care of the rest of those. Finally, the last thing that I've seen a problem with is people don't put in the return val. They'll just stop short of that. And if you run this code without the return val on anything that's not like got its own typecasting to change it into an int, it's just going to return none. So if I leave this out, it's going to return none. And that's a problem for a lot of other people. So double check and make sure you've got everything here that you need. All right, so now I'm going to jump back over to the actual project and talk about question 4. So I'm going to scroll down. Question 1, what neighborhood groups? If you can do question 4, the strategies here will apply to the rest of these. So you can rewind if you've gotten stuck on number 1 and just see what kind of loops we might want to talk about using. But here's the idea. Question 4 is the one that gets a ton of questions. So I'm just going to copy the question and put it in my notebook in the next cell. There we go. Now it's already got the Q4 in there, and it reminds me what question I'm working on. So I can go ahead and answer that right here. All right. So the first thing I see, I'm going to be finding room names containing the text Super Bowl. And it says case insensitive. We'll fix that later. First thing I want to do is just go through. I need to find, to start with, all of the room names. So as I look at this, I'm going to do a couple things to just sort of demo how I would approach this problem. To see all of the room names, I'm going to need a loop. I'm going to need to go through all of the rooms. Now, in this course, we will have exactly 3 kinds of loops. And let me just write a little bit about each one of them right here. There's the data for loop. This is going to be the simplest one. This is just going to be for data in, and then I'll have a data structure. And then I'm going to do stuff. All right, this is what they all look like. We've seen a bunch of versions of this. We have C in a string will get me all of the characters one at a time in a string. We're working with CSV data. If we do this, we'll have a row in the CSV, what do we call it, data? Data. CSV data, that's going to get us 1 row at a time. If we, here, let me just demo this. If we want to print out row, and I'm not going to do the entire data structure, there's 49,000 of them. I'm going to just slice this. And this is extremely valuable for testing because I only want like a couple of rows. So let me just run this cell, and I see it's now printing out a couple of rows. Let me make this even simpler. Let's just do row 0 to 1. That should include 0, but not include 1. It should just be 1 row, just row 0. There we go. So it looks like this is getting an entire row, which is a list. We'll see that this also works with dictionaries. We can get iterate through dictionaries. So we'll have basically for a data item in a data structure. This is my data for loop. It doesn't have a real name. That's me making up data for loop. Okay, the next, whoops. I want to undo that. All right, I'm going to leave that here for a moment. The next kind of loop is a little more versatile. This is going to be for the index in a range. Index in, and for this course, for this project, I want to be looking at all of the rows in my data table. So I need the length of the CSV table. So I'll just put that maybe right here. Number of items is equal to the length of CSV data. Let me make this with some underscores so it's actually a variable. So that's how many things we have in the list, is length of CSV data. Once I run this cell, I can use number of items. I mean, let's do it rows, number of rows. I'm trying to be as clear as possible with my labels for my strategy guide. All right, and then we'll just print row again. Wait, nope, that's not a whole row. We're going to print the index, and then we'll print the CSV data at that index, just to demo that this is working. And again, hold on a second. I'm not going to actually do all 49,000 rows for my demo. I'm going to do, let's do 2 rows and run this. Forgot the colon. There we go. So now it's printing out the index and the row. So this first one, let me just comment this out. There we go. Index 0, printing out the row. Here's the entire row. Index 1, forgive me, prints out row 1. All right, and if I wanted to go through all of the data, I would put in number of rows. If I run this, it's going to give me a giant list with 49,000 things. Python's really powerful. It can totally handle it, but it's a lot of data to look at. All right, so this is the idea. This is the version of a loop that we will almost always use. And we're going to use it, I believe, exclusively for this assignment. There might be a couple places where we can get away with this version, but for the most part, we're going to need the index of the rows because we're going to want to be moving from one column to another and getting data where things that are connected within the same row of data, the same Airbnb. All right, since this is a strategy guide, I just want to highlight one more thing too. I'm using the word index here. I want to be very clear. Up here, I was using row to describe what I'm getting out. It was giving me an entire row. It was giving me a list. Here, I'm using index to remind myself that this is going to be a number. It starts at 0, goes 1, 2, all the way up to however many there are. I'm a big fan of just using I to shorten this up so it's less typing. I've also seen IND for index, IDX. This is what we actually used up here in, where was it? In the cell function, we use IDX to indicate that this is an index. We use name when we're giving a string. So I'm just trying to be really clear with my variable names. I'm going to leave it as index for right now because I don't want to change it everywhere. All right, and then I just want to be complete and remind you guys that we also have a while-based for loop, or while-based iterative structure, while. And this is just going to take some sort of condition. While index is less than the length of, here I'm going to just use number of rows because I already have that. I'll uncomment that so this actually runs. This is going to, this is the most versatile. I have the most control, but I also have to do 3 things that are kind of special that I don't have to do for these other loops. First, I'm in charge of my index or my loop control variable. So I need to start out index equals 0. So I give it a starting value. Typo. I'm in charge of incrementing it. Index plus equals 1. I got to remember that. And then as I use it, I'm going to need it to actually extract the row itself. So row equals CSV data of index. So I'm in charge of getting all this information out, whereas these 2 lines and that line are all taken care of for me if I use the range loop. So this is an option. This one works for absolutely everything. It's the most versatile, but requires like 3 extra lines of typing that I have to remember. And if I leave them out, like if I leave this one out, I end up with an infinite loop. If I leave this one out, it crashes, and I'm responsible for actually extracting the data that I care about. All right, guys, I'm not actually going to be posting this Jupyter notebook. This is a strategy guide, and I feel like you will learn a lot by actually going through and doing this process yourself, typing things in, getting error messages and trying to figure out what they mean. I'm going to use this second for loop, the range-based for loop, to go through everything. And now the next thing I really need to do, we're actually finding room names. So I'm going to go ahead and get a room name. And as I go through, I'm going to get all of the room names one at a time. The room name is going to be, I'm going to use my cell function to grab the room name. And I want cell from, and if you remember, cell takes a row index and a column name. So the row index is just my index that I named right here. It's right there. And the column name is, I already forget. Let me scroll up to my header, name. That's the one I want right there. I'm going to copy and paste it right there. And then we'll go ahead and we'll just print out, I'm going to print out the index and the name, which I've stored in room name. All right, I'm going to do one more little thing while I'm doing my testing. I'm going to change the number of rows to just 5, and we'll comment out the rest of that. That's 2 characters that I need to type to change it back and make this work again. So it's giving me a much shorter list of names, and I can just see that it's working. I'm now getting actual room names from my data table. All right, common problem number 3 that I've seen during office hours. Let's take a look at this cell function. It's going to grab a value from the data table, just one, given a row index and a column name, which we converted to an index. But then this part right here, if the val is equal to the empty string, this cell function is going to return none. And in every case, we're going to want to skip everything where something comes back none. So heads up, guys, every time I use cell, there's a chance that it could return none, and room name is going to equal none. So what I want to do is just put a condition in right here and skip those rows. So if room name exactly equals none, that means there was no data there. I'm going to continue. And in pretty much every question, I'm going to have a group of lines that uses cell and then skips things where it's none. All right, you're going to need that in every case. All right, the next challenge we're going to run into is I want to just find the room names that contain Super Bowl. All right, so in fact, I think string functions give a lot of you guys trouble. The kinds of questions I get during like the live streaming of my lecture, during the Alice Bob scorekeeping game, we're almost entirely focused on using the strings to get the user input command. So I think if you're still struggling with that, we did a lecture on strings a few lectures back. Go review that one. If you watched my lecture, give Mina's a try. She does things a little differently. They might click. If you watched Mina's lecture, give mine a try. Yeah, again, we do have different styles. We're using the same slides. It's the same content. But just the delivery might be just enough that it jogs something. All right, so the idea here is that I've got all these names. Clean and quiet apartment home by the park. What I want to know is if it contains a certain string, in this case Super Bowl. So if, and what I want is Super Bowl, so that's a text string, is found in room name, then let's go ahead and print it out here. All right, let me just test this and see. It's only looking at the first 5 lines. This should print nothing. None of those things have Super Bowl. And again, it gets me nothing. A number of them, though, had the word park. I'm just going to test that. I don't want to look at the entire data set. I just want to see that it works. And again, I've got park here. Perfect. It does look like it's working with park. So I'm going to put back Super Bowl. I'm going to go back. Let's test the entire data structure now. So I'm going to change number of rows. So it's not just 5 anymore. Delete, delete, delete. But I'm using the entire data set. All right, so it looks like Super Bowl by itself is not found in room name in any of these. It's probably not lowercase, and that's the next thing, case insensitive. So what I want to do now is go and make sure that my room name is actually lowercase. So I'm going to just go ahead and redo room name is equal to room name, and now room name is a string, so I can use my string functions, one of which was lower. So I'm going to go ahead and just call that function right here, change room name to lower, and now it's going to find all of the room names. It's made them all lowercase that have the word Super Bowl in them. All right, so it turns out that what I want, let me go back to my project description, is not actually to print them. My answer should be in the form of a Python list. I'm just going to copy that over here to remind myself that I want a list. So when I'm putting things into a list, a great way to start out is to just create an empty list. I don't have a really good idea for a name. Let's go with Super Bowl rooms, and that's going to equal the empty list to get started. All right, now instead of printing these out, what I want to do is add them to the Super Bowl list, the Super Bowl rooms. So Super Bowl rooms dot, and to add, whoops, typo. To put something in a list at the end of it, I need to append it. So the function there is append. I've got a couple of options for adding things to a list. If I wanted to add several items from a list all at once, I would use extend. If I want to update, I would use indexing. But here I just want to add things. And what I want, I'm going to go ahead and add room name. This is almost going to be what we want. I don't need to print this out anymore. But instead what I'm going to do is after I'm all done with my loop, I'm going to print out Super Bowl rooms. So when I run this, it's giving me all the rooms that have the word Super Bowl. A couple things I want to fix. First, I'm printing out the lowercase version of this. Not exactly what I want. So here in line 10, I'm making them lowercase. I'm just going to room name, lowercase. And in room name, lower. So now I'm not changing room name. I'm just storing a new copy. Let me make sure that works. Yep. Of the lowercase name in a new variable. So it does the test with the lowercase name, but I'm now appending the version with all the capital letters. So if you look at the answer key, you'll be able to see that they are the capital letter versions of the room names. All right, a couple more details. Because of the way our grader works, it's looking So Jupyter Notebook actually has 3 zones here. We're seeing the code zone right here in the shadowed gray. There's an output zone for text that's printed. Let me run this again. And then for the very last variable, let me actually remove those extra lines. It's going to have this special out zone where there's an outbox number 23 where it's printing the contents of whatever variable is there last. That's what our grader checks. So you absolutely must have the variable just listed on a line by itself so that we know what to check. All right, this is perfectly acceptable. It totally works for question 4. I want to go back and just talk about the strategy. First, I know that I needed to iterate over all possible rows to test for the name. And I chose the range-based for loop for that, so that it gave me a value for the index. Then I went through. My strategy included printing something out every time I changed something. One line at a time. I added one line. I didn't write the entire code. I only wrote one line, and then I printed something. Then I added one more line, and I printed something. So that's a great strategy for developing code. For debugging, if you guys have gone ahead and you have like a whole bunch of code here already and it's not working, there's another strategy that I recommend. It's called scaffolding. It's like building a ladder of print statements where every other line is a print statement. So like if I wanted to, I would print out Super Bowl with a typo. Super Bowl rooms right here. And then when I run this, I should be able to see that I'm getting an empty list. If I wanted to remind myself what I'm printing, I can just add Super Bowl rooms with a comma there, and now it's going to tell me that this is the variable Super Bowl rooms, and it happens to be an empty list. So every other line. So here, I'm going to print the number of rows in this line. Then I've got my loop. Maybe I print out the index right here. After this one, I print out the room name. And just make sure that everything that I do is printing what I think it should. All right, I'm going to remove my scaffolding as soon as I get everything working. And this is great. It does work. So those are a couple of strategies you guys can use to debug your code when things start to go wrong. Next up, right here, I can see that question 5 is very similar. So this was find room names containing Super Bowl. This is find room names containing Dream Room. It's almost like the people who wrote this copied and pasted. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to go back. I want to use this code again to solve the next problem. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in a function. That way, if I find that I made a mistake somewhere, like this is a really common one, if I accidentally left that out, I only need to make the change once, because all of these questions 4, 5, and 6 can all be answered by calling a function. And when I find mistakes, I only need to change them one place. I don't need to remember to go back and change question 5 and 6. So let me talk about how I'm going to package this up into a function. All right, so first up, I don't actually need to print this out. I'm actually getting the value right here from Super Bowl rooms. But I'm going to define a function. And now I'm going to use this for room names containing. I'm just going to steal this text right here, room names containing, and that's what I'm going to name my function. I'm just not feeling very creative today. Maybe you guys can come up with something better. Room names containing, and then there we go. Now it's a function. I need to tab every single one of these lines over so that they're inside the function. And then, so right now this doesn't return anything, so it'll be returning type none. What I want to do at the end though is return, and what did I call it? Super Bowl. Super Bowl rooms. Now if I run this, let me grab a copy of the function. Super Bowl rooms equals, I'm going to call my function right now. I should see that the variable Super Bowl rooms after I run this is this stuff right here. Let me just make sure I didn't make any mistakes. Okay, still looking good, still got the word Super Bowl. Now, I want to make this a little more general. I don't want to just look for Super Bowl. I also need to find Dream Room and free Wi-Fi. So that's going to mean that I need a parameter. In this case, I need to name that parameter something. All All right, I'm going to go with word because I'm feeling not very creative, but it's going to be a descriptive word about the room that I'm going to search my text for. And in this case, my word is going to be Super Bowl. All right, first thing I'm going to do, I put it in lowercase right here, but the user may not. And because I'm using Super Bowl here, lowercase, I'm just going to real quick word.lower to change that right away to make sure I don't forget later. All right, now everywhere that I've used the word Super Bowl, I've hard-coded that into my code. I'm just going to replace it with the search term right here, word. And the only place I use Super Bowl is right there. All right, so this function should still work now. I've made one little change and I'm going to test it. Excellent. Still giving me all of the names that have Super Bowl in them. So it looks like it's still working. Let me just read this real quick. And is this enough? So I've named my Super Bowl, my list, Super Bowl rooms. If it's a little more general, if I'm looking for other things, that is probably not the best name for my room list. So I'm going to rename this. Let's just call it rooms. I don't believe I've used that variable name anywhere else. So where is that? Super Bowl rooms right there, just rooms. Super Bowl rooms, just rooms. Do I have Super Bowl anywhere in here? Nope, looks like I've found all the places I need to change it. So if I run this again, I still get the list of Super Bowl rooms. All right, right now I'm kind of feeling like this is enough. So I'm going to test it with Dream Room and see if I get the same thing. So I'm just going to go down to the next cell. I'm going to call my room names containing function with Dream Room. This is going to be Q5. I probably really want to copy and paste this just to remind myself what I'm doing. That way when you come to office hours for help, it's right there waiting for me to remind myself, like the TA, which room we're working on. And Super Bowl rooms is probably not the best variable for this. Let's get that updated to just rooms. And I'll call my function. Let's see if this works. I need to print it out. All right. I don't even know if that's the right answer. So I'm going to go back to the test.py and see if I'm getting these right. One sec while I pull that up. All right. So when I run test.py, I need to make sure that I've named it main. Cancel. I want to make sure that I do kernel restart, run all. I'm going to go to File and Save and Checkpoint just to make sure that everything's up to date. Now, I'm going to need a brand new PowerShell window, so I'm going to shift right click on that folder. I still have this file open and go PowerShell. And now just make sure I went ahead and downloaded test.py to make sure I've got the latest version. And then I'm going to just Python test.py. This runs pretty quickly because I've only done 2 of the problems. And I can see that both 4 and 5 are now passing. So I hope you guys found this useful. I would actually love to hear that this is something you find valuable. It's a great review. If any of these things you guys were struggling with, what kind of loop do I use? That's number one. If you're still struggling with how do I decide what kind of loop to use, how do I write a loop that's going to give me an index, you need to go back and study this one. That very first lecture, we put up a slide with some Swiss cheese on it. We put up a picture with a ladder with a broken rung. This is that moment. If there's a broken rung in your ladder, stuff you've learned, if you don't have loops down, you're going to struggle for the rest of the semester. The people who are coming to office hours and getting help are having trouble with these. So it's making me worried that we haven't done enough. In person, that's a lot easier to see. When I'm making videos, I really can't tell whether people get this or not, or what do I need to say one more time. So I'm hoping that a video like this is one of those things that I can see that I need to say one more time. The other thing that I'm seeing from students is the string functions. I've got a string, but I need to change it. I don't know how. I don't even know if it's a string function or not. A lot of the things that we're going to see in the next couple of lectures and the next couple of projects, and even later in this project, I believe, I don't remember for sure, but we need to be able to switch between strings and lists. And lists and dictionaries. We're going to need to be able to convert between these different types of data. So if you have any doubt about how these string functions work, go back and review that. A few minutes spent today reviewing string functions will actually make getting this project done faster than trying to get to the point where you don't know how to use a string and then having to go learn it again. 1 minute spent studying now, today, is probably worth 5 minutes studying 3 weeks from today, the night before our exam. It's Tuesday right now. Our exam is 22 days from now. And if you just do 1 minute a day extra, 1 minute to make sure that you've got this stuff down, or all right, maybe it's 10 minutes, is going to save you oodles of time in the future spent cramming. Now, personally, my strategy on getting through school, you got to do 3 things. First, you've got to study every day. You got to watch the videos. You got to make sure you know what's going on. You got to attend lecture. You do the worksheets. That's an everyday kind of thing. That is the most valuable kind of learning because you're getting a small piece at a time. The more the information spends time in your brain, the better you'll learn it. Number 2, cramming. The night before the exam is valuable. You want to make sure you get enough sleep, but if you've missed anything during that couple of weeks before the exam, that's your last chance to go learn it. Do it. Spend some time cramming. Make sure you do have enough time to get some sleep. Also very valuable. I survived most of college with cramming. It's not recommended. The first strategy, you do it every day, is better. And finally, for this class, you can learn it during the exam. If that's what happens, if you learn something during the exam, that's awesome. I'm still excited for you. The problem is you only get 2 hours. So coming back and trying to figure out, wow, I don't remember strings, you do not have time to go watch the video. I don't know which loop to use here. You do not have time. Those are things you need to figure out now, like today, ahead of time, not the night before the exam, not during the exam. All right, as I wrap up, I'm not planning to do more strategy style videos like this. I'm going to come back with bonus videos when I see the need for them. They probably won't be focused on like the actual project problems. But I would like to know if you guys find this stuff valuable. If you watched my video, if you benefited from it, go ahead and give this one a thumbs up. I don't think I've ever asked you guys to give a thumbs up on a video before. Don't ask you to subscribe. I'm never going to monetize my channel. Don't use bad words, Mike. I don't care about that. But in this case, I would like some feedback to know if you found this valuable. That way, as I look for future, things to add more like a review type content on, I can help you guys out. And one final little thing. If you made it all the way this far, if your function looks exactly like mine, you probably want to put a citation in there. If you used my text exactly, if you learned something and you changed some of your code based on what you saw here, go ahead and put in a citation. Here's an example of a citation. It says copied from. This is going to say https:/YouTube, whatever the video link is, if you watch this video and are copying something. Hopefully you watched all the way to this part, so you're reminded of that. Otherwise, I'm going to accuse you of copying my work without citing it. And that's not good. All right, anyway, hopefully that's not a problem for anyone. Have a great day.